Well, she sneaks around the world from India to Carolina. She's a sticky-fingered filcher from Berlin down to Belize. She'll take you for a ride on a slow boat to China. Tell me, where in the world is...
He's back. We should have known. Current temperature 63 degrees. Luigi's back in Minnesota. How long are you back for? Until we go back down to like 40?
Tomorrow.
See, tomorrow. And I think we're back to 42 tomorrow. Didn't you say, Guardsy? High of 42
That's the high, yeah.
I've got to go back to my home in Florida.
Back to Florida. That's exactly
my
it.
taxes in the morning, catch a flight in the afternoon.
So why are you here, other than to see us, which we appreciate?
To do my taxes.
Oh, that's right, to do the taxes. That's it.
And make sure things are good with the cottage for the summer.
Well, that's also true. Next expansion's coming, another expansion.
Well, we're getting
Can
ready
you comment
for you
on
guys
that?
to come up there.
Yeah,
we just,
that's true. Yearly pilgrimage.
We have to do our show.
So what was Russo doing up there?
He was coming to assess.
Assess, yes. As only he can do.
He'd like to have a place
Well,
there.
I wondered whether he was going to say, "Hey, Louie, why don't you give me like one of the buildings on your compound? Just let me hang there for a couple of weeks."
There's others for sale. I told him he should have made the move already.
Yeah.
He's in Lake Elmo and
That's
go
right.
to Balsam Lake. I said, you're only an hour and 5 minutes from the rink.
Not bad.
I said, and you always travel in non-business hours.
That's true.
And so you get the opportunity to enjoy your summers when you don't work. And in winters, you're traveling all the time anyway. Yeah. So just drive to, the only thing is driving to the airport, but you get used to an hour and 15 minutes.
He's used to that. Yeah, it's not that big a deal.
So, but he's got to part with money. Some people have it. But I said, you sell your house, you'll have enough to buy it.
There you go. That'd be the answer for sure. All right. So you had fun on the road trip. Team comes home, loses. This is the first of, I think, is it 7 in a row? I think it's a 7-game homestand where we've been awful. As you know, we've been great on the road and we've been pretty mediocre, basically a 500 team at home. It's starting to get a little bit worrisome regarding the playoffs. It's all tightening up. We can't score, Louie. We got 3 guys out, maybe forever. I don't know. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel this season for the Minnesota Wild?
Well, the end of the light of the tunnel is I don't think they're 3 out for the rest of the year. I do believe they're going to come back. And the question is, how long is it going to be before they get back? And what you said is exactly right. They're having really a problem scoring goals. And they're getting good goaltending. Their goaltending's been good enough, and they just haven't been able to put the puck in the net. And I would expect, though, that Boldy, Rossi will start to score goals. Zuccarello should probably chip in a few more. He's made a lot of good plays, and I just want to see him shoot a little more. And Boldy's been playing well. He just hasn't been able to put the puck in the net, which is unusual because he's about 6-7 games now, I think, without a goal. And he's too good a player to be going that long without scoring.
No, there's no question about that. That seems certain. I guess, like I said, we're at the mercy of whatever the timetable is. I'm guessing Guerin has ideas in his mind, but he doesn't want to go public for the obvious reason. That's what he told us. That if I give a date on any of them and then they miss that date, then everybody loses their mind. So he continues to say what you said. They're going to come. He expects all 3 of them to be back before the end of the season, but it's open-ended. We don't know. And the other thing we don't know is how effective they're going to be, right? But, I
don't worry about them being effective. They're good enough to be effective. Now, I obviously you're going to be a little concerned about how quickly can they get to their top level, because even playing with Rust on Kaprizov is going to be able to score goals if he gets opportunities, and he'll create opportunities. And you know that Eric Sedek's going to battle. He's having a tougher time scoring this year than he did last year anyway. So you expect maybe being out for a while, maybe it'll make a change. He'll start getting some of those pucks in front of the net and putting them away. And Brodin's always he's consistent. You don't look to him to score, but you do look to him to create by moving the puck out of the zone, and not having him is a crucial thing. But one of the things that's got to be fixed, and with them or without them, and you've mentioned it so many times, I've heard you on the air here, it's the power play's got to score goals.
Yeah.
You can't be that low in the league and expect to, hang on to a position when teams are battling right now. you have to expect if you get 5 opportunities a game, say you get 5, you got to score 1 goal in there. They're not scoring any.
Well,
and if you get 1, it takes 2 to lose. So, and that way you'd at least be getting a point. And they have to play 500, essentially maybe 1 point over 500 right now, the way I look at it, to see what the playoffs going to be.
Penalty kill's even worse.
Yeah.
If you do the stats I read, this is, I think, from Russo today, since the 9th of January, the Wild ranked 28th with 20 standings points, 32nd at 2.26 goals per game, 24th with 3.22 goals allowed per game, 17th with a 22% power play, and 30th with a 66.8% penalty kill. I mean, that all that conspires to put you in the position you're in. It's not surprising. And this was a team, remember, in mid-December was number 1 in the league in terms of in terms of points per game, right? So that's, and again, I don't know. I've said this a couple times. I don't know how mad can you get at the club when you have the people out that they have out. I don't know how you can properly evaluate them. I'm not sure. On the other hand, I do look at the home record and I go, well, this doesn't make any sense, does it? That you'd be this average a home. Again, they've been great on the road, but it continues, and now it's big because this is, like I said, a 7-game homestand. So you still have 6 games, still have an opportunity, presumably, but for whatever reason they've just struggled at home this entire season.
And you would think now with those home games that you should you got to shoot for at least 4 out of 7. And I'm seeing only 4 out of 7 because they've only been 500 basically at home. So at least if you get above 500, that takes 7 games off the schedule and puts you above 500 for those 7 games. And as we said, there's 24 teams playing 500 or better, and you have to continue to be in that area, because if you're in that area, you're going to make the playoffs. But one of the things that I think Hines has tried to do, and I like the move. Last game, he's starting to change the penalty kill, and he's putting players out there that are more scoring oriented than the people he's had before. And I say that because I know the first thing you have to do is kill a penalty. But essentially anybody should be taught, you can be taught to kill a penalty to the kind of structure that you want in there, where it's the positioning, where you're going to have your sticks to cut off passing lanes, etc. But I say that because I remember when I was on the ice playing the power play, and I used to play the power play in a point, I'd see who was coming out against me from the other team. And if I had 2 penalty killers but non-scorers, I would take more opportunity.
You would adjust, yeah.
Whether I want to handle a puck longer or make maybe a more chancy pass or something. Mm-hmm. But I had much less concern of doing something wrong with the puck than if I had a Bobby Clark and Ricky Leach that, if they get the pucks in, there's a good opportunity for them. They're going to score a goal. Whereas their 4th line checkers, you're not as concerned about it. And I like that the Wild are going to do that. Now, they sort of showed a picture of it over the last 2 games, having Nyquist out there. But I want to see Boldy out there too. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't even mind seeing Zuccarello out there because he's so good with his stick. He's so smart with the puck and positioning that you think their anticipation can create opportunities, and of which the Wild are getting very few. It was just 2 years ago they were like one of the top teams in the league. I believe it was 9 shorthanded goals scored, which is way above where they are now. They're near the bottom of shorthanded goals scored. So I'm hoping that maybe by using those players that something's going to change and they might turn the tables at some of those man short situations.
Louie is in studio for the hour, so hit the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line if you have questions or observations. Many of you already are. 64686. I want to read you a couple of paragraphs from Russo. A different story, and this is kind of part of what I talked about on Sunday. You've been in the general manager's chair. You know how this thing works. But, when Guerin was on with us Friday, one of the things he said was, look, he in effect said, I'm not going to – I know people want a big move. it's basically not our time yet for me to be that ambitious, so I'm not going to jump the gun and do something stupid, which I think is a logical position. But all this sets up, Louie, is the expectation level is going to be through the roof this offseason, because we've been told for years, just wait. Get off get the albatross of the two big contracts off our backs. Everything's going to change. You know, and I know it's not always that simple, though, where it depends on, because the guy you might have identified, there might be 3 other teams that also are interested in that player. But if this is a big offseason for Billy, I think, and for the entire organization, because they've pointed to this over and over again. And so if there's not a significant payoff and a big jump in performance next year, I think it is going to get a little bit ugly here in the state of hockey.
Well, I'd hate to put a damper on your thinking there, but here's the situation. They're going to get $14.5 million off the books, so they have that to use. They're going to get maybe another 12, it looks like, the cap increase. That's $26.5 million. They're going to have a couple of players' contracts up that they might not want to keep.
Yeah.
So they got about $30 million. Okay, that's the good part. The bad part is you have to consider Kaprizov's going to take at least $8 million, $8 million off that. So you're at 24 to keep him around. Now, so that leaves you in the 22-24 range. Now, to make a significant jump like you're talking about, you need 2 players like a Kaprizov. There's your $22 million. 10, 11.
Yes.
And that's saying that you've identified the right players and they perform to the ability that you're expecting. And you still have to fill the holes around them. So it's not so easy to just
that's my point.
A big increase in performance, right? And I'm just saying that to damper everybody.
Yeah, to not get too excited.
Because now you have all this cap space. You're going to be a cup contender. Well, you might be a cup contender, but what are the odds you're going to beat the guys? Now, remember this, and this is another point that we forget. Look who's off the board. All those good players like a Ratton and these players that have been traded and signed.
Very daunting.
Nelson, it was going to be all these players in your mind you were hoping could come
exactly
here.
Right.
They're off the board. So now, who are the ones that were identified?
Who's left?
Who's left?
100%.
So you have to look at who's going to be the free agents coming up now. And because of all these deals that were made, many of them have already signed contracts, so they're off the board. So the other ones that are coming up weren't traded and there wasn't as much buzz about them. So obviously, you're not going to get those kind of guys in June. You might have to wait till March, till the trade deadline, to see who's up again, available, use that. So you're going to have a club. You're going to have to set a hockey club, which they can do with the core with which they have, that's competitive until you come to the next trade deadline where you might have an opportunity to get a Ratton or Brock Nelson or all these others that have left that have, by the way, made some of these teams pretty darn well. The Central Division right now is just toughest division there is to get out of. Can you imagine the way it's setting up now, and you can almost bet 90% it's going to happen, that Dallas or Colorado is going to go in the first round. And those two are 2 of the top 4 picks for the Stanley Cup championship. And somebody's going out. That's considering that Winnipeg's ahead and they're going to end first. And the other one's the Panthers. So those are essentially your 4 top teams. And 3 are in the Western Division. That's why the best thing that could happen to the Wild now is slip to 7th. Because then you get to play at Vegas, which are capable of beating Vegas and getting by a round anyway.
Yeah. Let me read you. This was written by, I think, your lunch companion today, and I think Joe Smith might be in this as well. Guerin isn't wrong when he alluded to Price's Friday being outrageous, and he didn't want to trade away a bunch of assets he could use for trades this summer if free agency isn't the sole mechanism to make this team better. But nobody says the Wild had to break the bank and toss away a bunch of assets for Rantanen or Nelson. They had other pressing needs, like killing penalties and winning draws, a problem for the Wild for years and something that could doom them again if they make the playoffs, considering Guerin did not address either weakness Friday. How about Nico Sturm, an elite faceoff guy and penalty killer who was acquired by the Panthers, along with a 7th-rounder, for a measly 4th-rounder and only makes $2 million? Surely there were other guys out there that fit the bill, too. Instead, Wild traded 2 young penalty killers Husnadidov, I always mispronounce his name, and Lauko for Justin Brazeau. Brazeau, a fourth-line winger who doesn't skate particularly well, was described by the Wild as bringing size, good hands below the dots, and a net front presence to the power play. Well, he played just 4 minutes, 10 seconds Sunday in a damaging loss, appearing on none of the Wild's 6 power plays and playing 2 shifts the last 2 periods. Nyquist, meanwhile, the first guy we acquired, who was supposed to chip in offensively and help both the penalty kill and power play, has 0 points in his 4 games back with the team. Would they have acquired Brazeau, hang with me here, if their 2 offseason acquisitions hadn't failed to deliver? Lauko kept getting injured. Trennan has been an utter disappointment since signing a 4-year, $14 million deal, $3.5 million average annual value, even getting healthily scratched at one point this season. Trennan played 7 minutes on Sunday. Not exactly a sign of trust from the players. Then he goes on and on. He mentions, how about, if the Wild weren't actually a contender needing a piece to get over the hump, why would they make a signing like Trennan one summer away from getting their cap shackles off? Why give up so many picks, including this year's first rounder for David, is it pronounced Jurisic, knowing there's not really a space for him in the lineup this year and next, unless there's a planned trade of Bogosian or Jared Spurgeon that we don't know about. I think, and by the way, Jurisic called up last week, has been a healthy scratch in 4 games since. He needs to be playing either here or the AHL. I think those are all valid points. What do you think?
Well, they're valid points. They're arguments that could be confirmed, but it's in the eye of the beholder what they're thinking. And I do want to say this, that you're in a battle and you're having a tough time scoring. And I think that's why John Hines didn't play the 4th line very much, and that means that Brazeau could have gotten on the power play, and I don't know why they didn't put him in net front presence, because that's where he's effective. He's 6'6". He's not a physical player, but he's got a big presence in front of the net, right. and they're not scoring the power plays, you said. But Trennan being on the 4th line hasn't really produced a lot, and Brazeau's not that quick, so they essentially were just going with 3 lines because they needed to get a goal. They weren't scoring. I could see that shortening the bench early.
Yeah, right.
In fact, I don't know why you can't play 3 lines when you're desperate the whole game. You can say what you want, because the league used to play just 3 lines. He used to only have 3 lines and 1 extra forward. So I'm all for playing 3 lines when you're in need and you're somewhat desperate, and shortening the bench, and even shorten it early to try and turn things around. Now, I can understand his reasoning with Sturm. The Wild had Sturm, didn't re-sign him because didn't want to pay as much. He went away, went to Colorado. He even won a cup in Colorado, went to San Jose, and now he got traded. The thing I do like about him is he's fast. The thing that you have to be guarding against on any team, and I say that having first-hand knowledge, because this is where I made a mistake. I remember going down to the bench in '87, and I was watching practice, which I didn't watch a lot of, but I used to go and just try and get the temperature of the team. And I remember looking and saying, "Oh my God, we got slow." and without really focusing on that time, you get one, and before you know it, somebody gets older and gets slower, and then there's another one, and the Wild have to guard against getting slow.
Yeah, good point.
That's something that can happen, and it can happen quickly. I remember thinking when I was 36 playing, I said the heads say go and the legs say no, and you're not realizing that because you're with the players every day, so that you don't see a difference as if you were gone and then come back and all of a sudden, boy, that guy's got slower. So that's the one thing they have to guard against right now, I think. I think going into next year, this league is so fast. And when I watch the pace of the games I just did, that Seattle-Vancouver game, the one thing that amazes me is it never stops. It's quick up and down. And if you get out there with a couple of slow players, you're at a huge disadvantage in a hurry. The players going one way and the other guys are going the other way. It's something that is very important in this game. You have to have speed and you have to have hockey sense. And those are two things that if you're not careful, you can miss.
More important than size? Or is it? Or in truth, you have to
size
have
is
both?
overrated in a way. I can see, I focus more on size around the defense because in the playoffs, everything is crash and bang, just like the Four Nations stuff, and you're going to have a lot of it in your own zone. So your defensemen, and especially if you have a team of small defensemen, if I'm the other team, I'm going to say punish that defense. When you're getting hit every game hard, every second night, because that's when the games are played, and the series goes 5-6 games, you cannot believe. I can tell you the games are so physical and so tough to bounce back with energy that I worry more about getting caught with small defensemen than small forwards. And even though when you have too many small forwards, you're going to lose too many battles on the boards, except if you got an ability to Kaprizov, not being tall, but having strong stature and good base, he wins all the battles. But most of the smaller guys don't win as much. You not only have to have good hands, you have to have a good base. You have to have a wide base and be able to withstand the check and get the puck. So there are things you have to watch, but I'm not so worried that the Wild are going to get small up front. They're small enough right now. You don't want to get too many more, but they got Rossi and Zuccarello basically are two of the smaller ones, and they're talented,
right, and
they have good hands. And so you don't want to get a fourth line that's small because usually the fourth line's checking, and you want to get speed and people who can play a physical game.
320 guy wants to know what makes a good face-off guy.
Well, if I knew it, I'd bottle it and I'd go sell it. I think there's so many things involved. First, it's the anticipation. And if I was playing in the league, I try and remember everybody that's dropping the puck, every linesman that drops the puck. And if there's any motions or movements that he makes that I can remember that as he's doing that, I'm going to
give yourself an edge.
Give an edge.
Yep.
You also have to you have to be strong in your stick, and essentially that's why they get so low, is to battle for the puck. It's quickness of your hands as well. And one thing I think you have to know the situation and the time of the game. I don't think players think about the face-offs and the time of the game and the situation. They all go to win the face-off all the time. Sometimes it's not just winning, it's tying. And your line mates have to come in and get it. Like when we had the game in Seattle the other night, and there was they said 2.1 seconds on the clock. They did change it to 3.2. But I said on the telecast, I said, I've seen goals scored with 1 second on the clock because it's drawing a shot and it's in. So at 2 seconds, if I was taking the draw, I would go right down with my hand, even if I had to grab the puck or slap the puck, because the referee could do then is give me a penalty. But it's going to take him a second and a half to give a penalty. And they can't redo the face-off.
Sure,
they can't say that's not fair. The penalty is you get a face-off interference. So go and get the penalty if you have to at worst. Don't let the puck leave that dot. And so if it takes you a second and a half, or probably would take it 2, and you'd have to call a penalty to be 0.4 seconds on the clock, you can't score. So you got to think the game and think,
yes,
the situation and how you want to face off.
Let's make this the bottom of the hour pause. We have more hockey to get to. We'll probably get to some NFL free agency. We'll update you on who the Vikings have added, which ain't a lot so far, and who they've subtracted, which is considerable. The players, including the starting quarterback last year, Sam Darnold, who is headed indeed, as kind of expected after the big Seattle trade with Vegas on Friday, to the Seattle Seahawks. Questions for Louie? 646-8. Let's update you on a couple of Minnesota Vikings items that might be of interest or of note. We've added a safety. We lost Cam Bynum already. Was it Bynum goes to the Colts? Was it 4 years, $60 million?
Correct.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Do we get a piece of that?
You and me?
I don't think we heard his public persona. He was, Louie, we were saying, like the last 5 years, either the head coach or the player that we've had on weekly during the football season has at the end of that season either been fired or cut or has gone someplace else. So we might be considered a curse. I don't know if we're going to get anybody this year.
How are you going to get anybody?
Although, in fairness, I'm exaggerating a little bit, because didn't we have Patrick Peterson 2 years in a row?
Yeah, we had Andre Patterson a couple of years,
that's
too.
true. We did. That's true.
Oh, we had Louie on for 30 years.
Well,
Next thing you know, he's off the hockey broadcast.
That's it.
30 years later, he's not doing the high school bit. It's
Vikings
ridiculous.
have signed a safety named Bubba Bolden.
Who?
Good alliteration.
Love it.
This looks like a depth move, because he apparently has spent time in both the Cleveland camp and the Seattle camp, and even in the UFL.
Yes, for Birmingham.
So that certainly sounds like depth. Doesn't sound like anybody that we're going to start.
Alec Lewis had the most intriguing nugget about it.
What did he say?
Bubba Bolden has the same agent as Byron Murphy Jr.
Oh, maybe that's part of the deal. They said you got to sign him.
You know what the new trend is, by the way?
What's that?
What I've noticed this year more than ever? That you can't just say Dan Barrero has signed a contract with the Vikings, 4 years, $80 million. You have to say Dan Barrero has signed a 4-year, $80 million contract negotiated by agent Lou Nanne. The agents are getting the shout-outs from the reporters nowadays. Well, they're doing the favors. They're getting the nuggets.
My guess is then it helps you. That
Definitely
enhances that person as a source for you, for the media jackals.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So we're learning all the agents' names now, so all of us can sound more inside,
knowledgeable.
within wow.
Yeah.
Agents are probably promoting that, calling up. You want to know who just got signed?
Of course.
You got to use my name.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. You're right. Vikings have already agreed to terms with cornerback Isaiah Rodgers, who was with the Eagles most recently. 15 games for the Super Bowl winning Eagles. He started 3 this year. You'll recall, and I didn't, that he was suspended in 2023 for violating the NFL's gambling policy.
I remember talking about it, top 5 and 5.
Did we talk about it then?
Yeah. You know, one of those in passing that comes up.
So that's his background. It doesn't look like a massive amount of money, right?
It's not.
Almost $5 million signing bonus. The assumption is we still want Murphy, but there's no word on that. Sam Darnold is indeed going to Seattle. 3 years, what'd you say, 110 mil, 55 million guaranteed?
Yeah, I think 58 maybe, but yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Nick Mullins, former Vikings backup quarterback, signing with Jacksonville as a backup. And we also lose tight end Johnny Munt to Jacksonville, I believe.
Udinsky's just raiding us.
He's exactly it. That's the connection. Bynum, as I mentioned, going to the Colts. Daniel Jones is still available. That's the question. If he goes someplace else, like apparently the Colts are talking to him as well, who we left with? We're going to have to go out and find a backup quarterback. Louie, there's some people very unhappy with me on X, and there's nothing new about that because that's the nature of X, obviously. As I keep kind of taunting people with the you really want to poke the bear and bring Aaron Rodgers here, and they're mad at me. They're saying, stop saying this. It's embarrassing. It's not true. You're just trying to get people going. So, and Aaron Rodgers had a disastrous year last year. The team was a disaster last season as well. He's not what he was by any means. He's a pain in the ass by all accounts at this point. But how crazy would it be? How big would the story be if the Vikings said, bleep it, we don't care. We're going to roll the dice with A-Rod for 2025.
Well, I actually loved when they signed Brett Favre years ago. I was ecstatic, and I still think we could have won the Super Bowl that year if we didn't have too many men in the huddle. But I think that as upset as people would get, maybe you look at it like, if A-Rod can't play as well as he can he school McCarthy better than anybody else? And I wouldn't be all upset if they signed him, because I'd be hoping for that glimmer of greatness again that he's shown so many times in Green Bay. And, you never know if he's capable of it with a good team. I think the Jets were a mess, and
they were. That's undeniable. Beyond him, you're right.
I give him some blame, but I give the organization some blame. And I think this is a much better organization. So I personally wouldn't mind seeing it because I think that as much as a pain in the ass he might be, he's got a lot of knowledge in that head that I think he might be able to impart to McCarthy. So if he wasn't able to play as good as they want him to.
And also there's an open question about where he's going to be physically. The Vikings are saying all the right things, but will he be ready to hit the ground running from the start of it? I think it's a fair question to have. I mean, in their world, they're looking at a safer choice is Daniel Jones, right? Not as high maintenance by any means, has some promise. The Vikings may say, look, we elevated Darnold. There's no reason we can't elevate Daniel Jones as well, and have him as your insurance or as your bridge quarterback if indeed McCarthy is having trouble physically getting started or even just not, playing as well as is expected.
The thing that I still have to go back to is you might lose your legs as you get older, but I don't think you lose your arm as quickly or as much. And with the receiving core that the Vikings have,
A-Raj to JJ?
Yeah, and A-Raj was never a guy that ran much anyway, so it's not like you're giving up a running game that he used to have. But I still would love to see the way he could throw the ball to all the receivers. I mean, they had such a great receiving core that I find it hard to believe that this guy couldn't move the team pretty fast with the way he can throw a ball.
It's from the beat writers, the guys who cover this team day in and day out. I think most of them are skeptical that the Vikings are looking that closely at him. The word on the street is Pittsburgh is zeroing in on him now that Justin Fields has signed with the Jets. I don't know what the situation is with Russell Wilson. Somebody else said, what about Russell Wilson here as a backup? I guess that's another option. But I think, Louie, like I said, it's easy for me to say roll the dice because if it's a disaster, I don't get fired. But part of the reason I think, in sports, in all honesty, what is sports really about? Sports more than anything is about bleep it. Let's just go. It's crazy, but it's just crazy enough to let's go ahead and do it. Those are the kinds of stories that I think really drive sports, right? Now, when you're a general manager, you got to be more clear-eyed than that. You can't just be about the story. You've been in that chair. But that's it, right? For a lot of people, it's like, makes no sense, but God, what a story it would be. And the guy is a first ballot, it's undeniable he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. The question is, what does he have left? And might he be more motivated because he does not want the last thought on Aaron Rodgers, the last perception to be what? Him struggling with a struggling team in New York. Which means what? Hunger. He's going to be hungry as hell.
I think that point is hits the nail on the head. I really believe that he wouldn't want to go out like he had a year last year with that kind of, he might get another chance with another team, but that's still there prevalent. And the only way it's going to change is not just being an ordinary quarterback, but being somebody capable of doing something. And if you're going to be somebody capable of doing something, you need a supporting cast.
Yep.
And I think the receiving core of the Vikings gives them that opportunity. I still believe they want to get to McCarthy as quickly as possible, but you said it might be early on. So you have to look at it two ways. One, he's only going to be your quarterback for a short time, then he's going to school the youngster. Or if he gets off to a heck of a start, he's going to be your quarterback for the year, and the youngster can learn in the winning season. I don't know much about football to know who would be a better choice than Rodgers with this receiving core right now that's out there. And Jones might be better. I always look at Jones being in New York, and I didn't think they were very good in New York, and he was part of it.
Right.
And I've seen Rodgers enough to know that he's been good a lot longer than he's been bad. And so he has capabilities and knowledge that few have in the league. So, are you willing to take a chance? Me, I would take the chance.
This is from, is it Troy or Tracy? Let me take a look here with my greeters. Troy from Shakopee. Dan, special request to ask Louie. My name is Troy from Shakopee. I drive Uber full-time in the Metro. I took Louie and his wife to their anniversary dinner a few years ago. He graciously signed a shirt from my special friend Renee in Owatonna. She is a huge Lou Nanne fan. She is going through a tough time being a caregiver for her mother in her late 80s, dealing with cancer. She loves Louie, and I always tell her when he is on your show, she listens on iHeart. She loves hearing his voice and gives her somewhat of a break from difficult day-to-day activities. I would appreciate it. So it sounds like, Louie, he's looking for a shout-out to Renee from you in Owatonna at a time where apparently she's having some struggles.
Well, I certainly will do that. I want to wish Renee and her family the best, and I know it's a tough time going through it. I think one of the things she should do is think of all the good times she had. And when you lose a parent, it's really tough, but you have to be thankful for the memories that you were able to have, and I think that's what you got to latch onto right now when you're going through a tough time. And Troy, I remember he sent me a couple notes along the way. I've never had an Uber driver do that before. He was really very gracious and very nice, and he's had me a couple of times, and it's unique to when you have a relationship with someone you meet one time, but it's very nice of him. Thank you.
Very well said. Let's get another quick pause in. I have some college hockey. Some good questions have come in, which we will include in the conversation. Maybe some more wild stuff. Who knows what else? Luigi, great having him back in studio. We'll continue. Brought to you by Kemp's in just minutes. Let me get to a couple of, or at least one good college hockey question for you. I should have started is what I should have done because we've got so many of them coming in. Here we go. Good afternoon, gentlemen. This is 507 guy. Louie, can you please talk with Motzko about greasy goals in the playoffs and that they win championships? I went to 2 out of 3 games at Mariucci this past weekend. Watched the Gophers attempting pretty plays all over the ice. I don't want to see the U of M bounced again early in the tournament. Thanks for everything you have done for hockey, Luigi. That is from 507 guy. What do you think?
Well, I like the fact that he's talking about greasy goals. I like that too. And the reason why I think it's a good point is because that means you got to be involved. And if you're going to win the playoffs, you have to be playing a physical game and you have to win battles to get pucks.
Yep.
And greasy goals are winning battles to get pucks, and they got to get to those areas, which is very important. I was telling one of my friends yesterday that the game they played, they were too much on the perimeter, too much on the edge of the puck. You can't, when you go into playoffs, you can't reach for pucks. You can't leave zones early. You can't not be physical, not finish a check. They're at the time right now where you have to earn everything you're going to get because these games are so impactful and it's one and done. So they have to have a mindset in those games that it's my puck, not yours, and battle for it.
Did you find it at all ironic that after all those hits and misses for Moorhead, while you were still doing the TV broadcast, the year you're gone, they finally break through in a highly entertaining run, especially the championship game.
Yeah, they had a terrific team, and they were ranked properly number 1 essentially most of the year, and they have some extremely gifted players on that team. And as you said, I saw Moorhead in 3 games in the finals where they should have won. They had the best team, and they didn't win. I felt really bad for them. And in Morinville, I remember talking to him after one game when he was coaching. I said, I don't know, it's just the breaks of the game, and that's why you hate one and done, because you certainly had the best team and, just weren't able to put the pucks away. So they have such a great tradition up there and an excellent hockey history, starting with the Cullens, Terry Cullen, who played in North Dakota, and back almost in my day, and he was very involved in the program. Then to see his sons come along and grandsons, and it just warranted. And Ryan Kraft, who played at the U there, his son was. I couldn't believe he only got 4 goals in one period. Never got another one after that because I saw the goals afterwards. I was out to dinner and didn't get to see the whole game, but when I saw the replay of the goals, and I thought, well, how do you not get it a 5th at least, or maybe even a 6th? He has such a good presence with the puck and patience and good hands, good shot. But it was really rewarding for Moorhead, who has come through that for years and finally was able to get a championship. I'm sure that city right now is celebrating
big time.
Big time.
651 guy, Louie, what are your thoughts on the MSHL transfer rules? This hockey tournament was fantastic, but there was a lot of chatter around Calvin Conway, the Stillwater goalie, the transfer from Andover to Stillwater. Many unhappy people on both sides. How can the MSHL address these incidents where someone, quote unquote, moved when in fact they didn't? I have no idea whether that allegation is accurate, but there's always, any sport, there's always issues about transfers and what happens, what should happen, what should be allowed to happen. He also says that your voice was indeed missed on the TV broadcast. Do you have any thoughts or any knowledge regarding transfer rules and resentment on those issues?
Well, unfortunately for Stillwater, the goaltender that did transfer, he didn't get his papers finished at the right time, and 5 wins were made losses. But he had time to play another 5 or so and led that team into the playoffs. But the transfer rules are getting muddied up in every level of competition, starting with college football, which is driving me nuts, or college sports with the INL. And now they've changed the rules in high school where it's made it feasible to be able to transfer some kids before
right.
you had to buy or be living in that area and you had to watch when you came in, when you didn't come in. I don't fully comprehend right now where they're at with that rule, because it's been in flux for a while, and I hate to see it, because all is could get worse before it's going to get better. They're not going back to stage 1, and now they're going to go to the next stage, and it'll be easier for kids to move around. And the state high school tournament evolved out of state high school teams in their areas and their districts getting a champion and winning. It was pure and clean, and you grew up with the kids, you play with the kids for the most part. You're always going to have one or two move in or something from traveling or whatever. But now I think it's going to become more wide open. This thing has gotten so big and so magnified of this championship and the sport and this in Minnesota, known for this tournament, that it seems that you're going to evolve into a recruiting deal pretty soon. And that's what I'm afraid of. And I hate to see that, because I love the purity of it before.
So we're going to see you next in the summer, you think?
Yeah.
No, playoffs. You're going to be at the X with us for the Wild first round playoff series, correct?
I think the first round starts too early.
Okay. Yeah, it probably does. That's true.
Yeah,
well, maybe, you know what? Perish the thought. How about they get to the second round? Or the third round or something. And then by then, it might be warm enough for you to actually
I could send a
venture
picture.
back.
I could send a picture.
You could. By the way, you haven't seen our guy Mace lately?
No.
So is he in Florida or not?
Who knows?
We don't even know. Yeah, we haven't.
Where you get a free meal, I don't know.
Guardsy, have you checked in with Mace lately? I haven't. I should check in with him. I haven't.
Maybe just stop by downtown Wayzata tomorrow morning. It's going to be a nice day.
Oh, that's right. He always is there in the morning. He goes by that dog park, and he brings the pooches, and they get coffee, and they hang out together. And he's the mayor of the whole proceedings, the whole group.
I'd like to have nothing to do like that sometime, wouldn't you?
He's got the good schedule, doesn't he? That's for sure. Great to see you. Nice surprise. I'm glad you're back, even if it's not for long. And we'll see you soon. Talk soon.
Yeah, talk to you next week. Thank you.
Luigi, brought to you by our good friends at Kemp's. A great hour with Louie. We've got Johnny Athletic coming up at 5:30. Top 5 at 5 will include the very latest on NFL free agent frenzy. Don't go away.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something. Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Optimize your nutrition with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart and Protein Plus. Factor's keto meals can help you lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks. Get started at factormeals.com/factor50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Weight loss with Factor Keto based on a randomized controlled clinical trial. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise.